right, welcome to the Design Review Committee. We'll go ahead and call to order.
Okay, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, committee member Baranek?
Here.
Committee member Schmidt?
Yes.
Committee member Vanden Eyck?
Here.
Vice Chairperson Funk?
Here.
And Chairperson Newsom?
Here.
All present.
Okay, can I get an approval of the agenda?
So moved.
To approve.
Second.
Sante.
I'll second that.
Who's, okay, thanks. Jeff, that was Jeff.
It's like
All
the
right.
Hollywood squares light up.
All right, we've got Vice Chairperson Funk,
Yes.
Committee member Vanden Eyck,
Yes.
Committee member Baranek,
Yes.
Committee member Schmidt,
Yes.
and Chairperson Newsom.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. At this point, I'll open it up to public comment, and that is going to be for any topic of discussion that is not on the agenda. And feel free to raise your hand in the webinar.
Did we need a motion to approve the agenda itself, and you just need a motion to approve the minutes?
Annette, we
Oh,
used to.
sorry, yeah, we need two separate motions. Want to
Okay.
approve the minutes now.
Okay. Did you want to start with that, Susan?
Yeah, so move. I think we did the minutes earlier, so they were approving the agenda now, or vice versa.
Sorry, they weren't on my list. If it wasn't on my list, I didn't check it off.
We did the agenda, so now minutes is next. We need a motion.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I thought I had moved to approve the minutes. That was the earlier request. So, so anyway, so move.
I'll second.
Okay, Vice Chairperson Funk,
Yes.
Committee member Baranek,
Yes.
Committee member Schmidt,
Yes.
Committee member Vanden Eyck,
Yes.
Chairperson Newsom.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Isn't that funny how we get in this motion when we have this checklist and it's not on here, we forget it's. Thank you, Susan, for bringing that up. Okay, now this time we'll open it up to public comment, and that is for anyone that is wishing to speak on a topic that is not on our agenda today. We might have call-ins or those that are participating on the webinar. If you're on the webinar, you just need to raise your hand. Let me get my list of attendees. If you're wishing to speak, and then I don't even see the, oh, here it is. Do we have anybody that's called in? I don't see anybody showing up on the list.
I don't see anybody.
Okay, then I will go ahead and close public comment, and we'll go on to consent calendar. It must be out of order, so we just did that.
Yeah.
Approval. Okay. All righty. Now we can go on to our agendized item, the development project review. And I'm assuming that's you, Mariah?
That is me. My computer's thinking about it. Is it starting to share for you at all, or?
Nothing yet,
No.
except for Maria's trying to start screen sharing.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, a little slow today. Okay, thank you. So this project being brought before the Design Review Committee today is for the Giffen Equipment and Bobcat Rental and Dealership. This is a conditional use permit at 2600 El Camino Real. So the property is a 1.63 acre lot in the commercial park zoning district. You can see to the west, there's high density multifamily. And then, or I'm sorry, to the east, there's high density family. And then to the west is low density residential suburban on the other side of Highway 101 there. Here's an aerial view of the site today. As you can see, it's a pretty blank slate. There's one vacant metal building there, which we'll discuss in a little bit, but otherwise it's completely empty site. On the other side of El Camino Real, I will note that there is the new Emerald Ridge housing development, just to give you a little bit of context. And then this property also abuts the fence factory. So as I mentioned, there is an existing metal building on the site that will need to be brought up to the current California building code standards that will be used for storage. The rest of the site is vacant and has not been utilized by a permitted use in recent history. So this is the first use permit we've seen and first development plan we've seen on this site, at least in a while. So again, this proposal is for Bobcat equipment rental and dealership business. The proposal includes a new 9,400 square foot single story building, as well as parking and landscaping. The use is defined as a sales lot in our municipal code and therefore requires a conditional use permit since it's in the commercial park or CPK zone. Sales lots do have a little bit unique development standards that are outlined in our municipal code. Those are discussed within the staff report, and we'll talk about them in the presentation. And then this also, this property is also overlaid by a plan development number 1 overlay zone. It has its own development standards as well. So here we can see a site plan of the proposed project. You can see there's 2 new driveway entrances off of El Camino. The driveway as well as the parking area is proposed to be laid with paver bricks. The new parking lot includes 20 new parking spaces. The vacant spots that you see around the site are proposed for equipment parking. That would be a compacted base where they'll store the equipment or store it to show. You can see the location of that existing metal building. There's a new trash enclosure proposed right next to it. And then obviously there's the large new building toward the back of the site. So that new 9,400 square foot building is 1 story, but includes about 750 square foot mezzanine. Originally that was proposed to be used as a caretaker's unit, but the commercial park zone does not actually allow for commercial or for caretakers units. So that mezzanine, it will be used as office space. The rest of the building will be used for servicing equipment, parts sales, and it will be used as an equipment showroom. So here we can see some elevations of the new building that's being proposed. You can see it has sort of a modern industrial character. It will include this blue standing seam metal roof, as well as gray standing seam metal wall panels around the whole building. There are some accents of the Giffen corporate color, which is orange throughout the building. So it adds a little bit more interest to just the flat gray building. And then there is CMU block wall around the bottom of the building. It's a little bit hard to see, but if you can take a look here, which also adds a little bit more interest as opposed to just big metal walls with the vertical siding. Here are just some more elevations or renderings that are a little bit more lifelike to give you an idea of what the project will look like with a little bit of landscaping. Here's just a floor plan. As I mentioned, big space on the bottom. There's some offices there on the left side of the building, parts in the middle, and then there's a service department there on the right side of this picture there. And then the mezzanine here shows the caretaker's unit, but as I'd mentioned, that's actually going to be used as an office space. And here are some elevations of that old metal building and how it's going to be transformed to look and match the new building. It will get a similar new metal roof, the same metal panels, and then new windows and doors around the building. So they will look very similar. And then our code does have a requirement for a trash enclosure on commercial properties. The trash enclosure needs to be screened from the right of way. So the applicant is proposing this trash enclosure, which again matches the new building and the renovated building with the standing seam metal roof. It has stucco walls and then metal gates there in the front, which will access the enclosure. So to discuss the fencing around the site, if you can take a look around the 3 sides of the property, there's a blue line. That's an existing chain link fence that's to remain. The fencing along the right side of this picture is, I believe that's along the southern side, I guess.
Factory.
Yes, is that does have green slats in for screening at this point. The applicant is proposing to add those slats in those other 2 fences. There is a block wall that's being shared by the building on the adjacent property. So obviously there won't be a fence added next to that. That sort of acts as the fence along that side. But otherwise, fencing around the other 3 sides will have the 6-foot tall chain link fence with green slats. The fencing along the front property line will be a new 6-foot tall wrought iron fence with 2 gates that will swing open into the parking lot. These have been set back far enough from the edge of the sidewalk to meet our public works standards. Our sales lot standard does have a requirement that fencing within a front setback not exceed 3 feet in height. The applicant is proposing 6 feet, and based on the use of the site and the commercial appearance of the area, staff is recommending that, will be recommending to the Planning Commission that the 6-foot tall fence be allowed here in the front setback for safety purposes and security. And so, yeah, we're going to be recommending approval of that height exception. So the plan development number 1 overlay also requires a minimum rear setback of 10 feet. This is the rear setback along Highway 101. The intent of the setback was really to allow adequate space for enough landscaping to screen and buffer the light industrial uses and the outdoor land uses from Highway 101. So the applicant has provided a landscape plan. You can see all of the chain link fences around the edges of the property are screened, which is a requirement of our code. So they are meeting that requirement. Along the front here, we have a couple of new sort of street trees. These will be Chinese pistache trees along El Camino, and then along the sides and rear property, these will be, I believe there are Buddhist Marina. I apologize. But yeah, there are Buddhist Marina, so there'll be also smaller screening trees around the edges. In the back here, there are a couple of coast live oak trees, which will sort of act as the screening from Highway 101. And then in the back corner, you can see they do have this large stormwater basin. So the location of the stormwater basin sort of inhibits the ability of adding the larger screening trees, which is the intent of the Plan Development 1 overlay. So staff's recommendation is that they increase the landscape area back here, add some ground cover or some low shrubs, and then add 2 new oak trees, which will match the coast live oak trees over on the other side of the property. This will help to fulfill that requirement of screening that was intended with the Plan Development number 1 overlay, but still allow the applicant to have a little bit of visibility from the highway, which is what a lot of these businesses and properties along here want. They don't want to be completely hidden. So this space right now is proposed for a little bit of equipment storage, and based on the location, staff is recommending the landscaping because it also doesn't seem like the most feasible location for equipment storage. And these renderings give you a little bit of a better idea of why staff is making this recommendation. So in this basin, you really can't plant anything significant and for screening. And so that's the reason we want to extend a little bit further into the lot with the landscaping. So here are some photos from the site. This top one is from El Camino. It's a flat, almost vacant property, and then the one from Highway 101. You can see there's that existing chain link fence that will have the new green slats with the screening with oak trees on the left side of the picture. And then we're proposing that more be added along that right side. So just to summarize staff's recommendations for this project, we're recommending that a fence height exception to allow a wrought iron fence along the front property line up to 6 feet be allowed, and chain link fencing along the sides within that front setback also be allowed as proposed. And then staff is also recommending that additional landscaping and irrigation be added between the retention basin and the rear side of the new building, as shown in attachment 3 of your staff report. Landscaping here shall include the planting of a minimum of 2 15-gallon coast-type oak trees, which will match the other trees proposed on site. So the items for the design review committee to look at and discuss are the actual design or the site design, the architecture and design of the structures, any fencing and screening requirements, including that screening along Highway 101, and that would include landscaping as well. And staff is available for questions.
Okay, thank you, Maria. All right, Dennis, you're at the top of my squares.
Oh.
Questions?
Giffen or Griffin?
It's Giffen. I had to look it up a few times, but it is Giffen. The applicant's here. If I'm wrong,
In our
but
staff report, it says Griffin over and over.
I apologize.
Okay,
I think it auto-corrected maybe to Griffin.
that usually happens. You're correct.
Yeah, because I kept getting the little squiggle.
I'm supportive of the fence along the front side of the property as recommended.
Hey, Dennis, this is questions for staff, and then we have to go to public comment first.
Thank you, Heather. I was just about to weigh in. Let's not,
Okay.
let's hold back from opinion.
Question, the PD overlay, is it for this project or is it for all the properties along the highway in that area? I'm
So it's along
confused.
most of,
I haven't recognized PD overlay on the adjacent properties. That's why I'm asking.
so yeah, the plan development overlay is on most of the properties over there. I think it goes as far as, I'm pretty sure the old Kailana is even in PD1. So it's most of the properties over there along the freeway.
So on the site plan, were there 2 fences along the highway? The existing fence plus a new fence?
No, so it's just one fence proposed there.
Then the basin or the storm drain basin is, how deep do we know?
The applicant should be able to answer that question. I believe it's a couple feet deep.
Then to me, it needs to be fenced maybe. That's why I'm concerned about if it's being double fenced, about the maintenance of that 10 feet if it's being fenced in.
Yeah, that's typically not what they do with these basins at the rear. And there's not much they can do with the Caltrans fence because that's very closely regulated by Caltrans. And so typically the idea is to have the screening, actually, the landscaping act as that sort of, low visual barrier to transition into the site.
Okay, and that was one of my questions, if it was Caltrans or the city. So Caltrans is going to allow them to put green slats in that fence without some permission?
No, so they're not, I don't know that they're proposing to do that. Are they proposing to do that, Mariah, at the Caltrans fence? Because I don't
That
think they-
is what they're proposing. I don't know if they've talked to Caltrans about it.
Yeah, they would have to actually get permission from Caltrans to do that. I thought that was just on the side fences. So that would be something they could do. I don't think that's a problem from the city end, but whether Caltrans allows for them to do that is a question. So they'll have to check that out through Caltrans.
There was nothing about signage in the presentation. Being it's a highway property, I guess there is a highway sign ordinance that we have in the city that they could put along that area at some point if they wanted to.
Well, there's some limitations on that for we only allow highway signs for very particular land uses. So I'm not sure this fits that category,
Okay.
but you could apply for an exception.
Well, there might be where my questions or my concerns are. It seems like a lot of projects along that area hang signs on the fence and do things along the fence. And I didn't see any conditions or any discussion in here about that. But again, we're looking at the building and not at the conditional use permit.
That's right. And I think in this scenario, their layout and their product is what they really want to have kind of in place of signs, because those things will sell themselves. But, I could be wrong. They may want a sign that faces the freeway, and that's a separate discussion, but the DRC can weigh in on those kinds of topics if you wish.
Yeah, and I will say, you received the applicant's submittal to us in your staff report on page A11 of their submittal. They do include a couple of wall signs and a monument sign out front, but they don't have any freeway signage. And I believe the signage they're proposing fits within the city's regulations. But that is something we can talk about more at the planning commission.
It just, there was no focus in the report. I saw the signs on the building. And so I was looking for something that dealt with signs, and I didn't see that. But I'm just real concerned about the presentation along the highway. And I understand what you're saying, Director, about the machinery being assigned themselves. But as we know, we have sign problems throughout our city. And again, there are many, the RV place that's next door or down the way, they have RVs that they have along the frontage, but yet they have signs too. You would think that the RVs would sell themselves under your context. So I'm just concerned about the what the project looks at from the highway, as it's seen from the highway. If there is going to be a double fence, I'm very concerned about that, because it'll turn into a trash area, I believe, and the landscaping won't be maintained. So thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Let me go through my Hollywood Squares. Susan, I see your hand.
Yes, okay, just a couple of questions. In the trees that the staff is proposing, which we can see would go into the lower right corner of what's the image on the screen now, is that, that would probably take out a parking space or two for the applicant. Is that a significant concern to them?
So it's a little bit, we've received a couple different sort of iterations, and the applicant, we haven't received obviously a landscape plan with the new trees. So this plan shows that parking a little bit closer to the rear property line, and this shows the parking a little bit further. So I don't think we've gotten to that level of detail, but I think that would be a good thing for the applicant to weigh in on.
The bigger concern is actually just having an equipment storage area back behind the building. And that's often the problem we have along 101, is we get equipment storage and kind of forgotten zones back behind a building. But the reality is, for the freeway visibility, that's the front of the site. And so we don't want to turn our back on that, because that's what people see as their perception of our community at Tascadero. So I think what staff's saying there is not to have that as a storage area. If the parking got a little closer, that's probably okay. But really the idea is that we, in that corner, have some pretty good screening, and we don't know that there's really room to push equipment yard back in that spot, too far. So that's the real topic there that we're concerned about.
Right, because what we don't want to, we want to allow them to store all the stuff that they've got, and this is a usage that would lend itself to outdoor stored equipment of a variety of kinds, including stuff for rent for sale. But we don't want to end up with either the piece right next to the freeway or the area right next to El Camino Real looking like a junk heap.
Yes.
So do we know what the proposed usages are for the storage, how that will be managed, and what the usage is of the lot next to El Camino Real versus the portion of it that's further deeper in the site next to the freeway.
I think these are good applicant questions to clarify that, because they have all those zones shown as the same thing, which is equipment, yard, storage. And I know some of it's going to be what they're going to be renting, some of it may be what they're selling, some of it may be other things that are, you know, something else. And so we need to really clarify that. And I think that's a good question.
Okay. The proposed roof, what does it look like from above? Because we have quite a significant multifamily development across the street in El Camino Real. They'll be looking down on this site because they're higher elevation.
Sure. So let me see. I was trying to see if they had a roof plan in here. So it's my understanding that it will just look like the metal roofing that you see all the way around. Obviously, there's varying roof lines there. I don't see a roof plan, so that might be something that the applicant can elaborate on as well.
Looks like a gray standing seam metal, which doesn't look too reflective. So,
Okay, yeah, the reflectivity would be the biggest concern, given that you're going to have sun bouncing off that into residential windows. So that there's a fair amount of, looks like a lot of variety in terms of its not just being a single flat surface.
Mhm.
I did a site visit real quick this afternoon on my way back from City Hall, and noticed that the fence between this property and the property to the south, occupied by the fence factory, has a rolled razor wire topping. Is that permitted, and will that be continued?
So there's no notice of discontinuing it. I'm assuming was placed there by Fence Factory. So I don't know, maybe Phil, if you can weigh in. I don't know if we can make them take it out, but razor wire is not prohibited by code.
it's certainly something that we want to address through the use permit conditions and through this design review, whether or not that's appropriate. We have not double checked the conditions on the fence factory and what they were required to do or not allowed to do. We need to double check on that. That was done as a later addition. I know that use permit was issued in about 2000 or 2001, about 20 years ago.
Mhm.
And I know that they have had, over the years, there has been a little bit of a theft issue on some of these properties that face the freeway, and that may be response to that. But it's certainly an aesthetic issues, and there's other ways to get that same kind of security with different kinds of fencing and security devices rather than the circular razor wire. So that's definitely a good discussion point for the DRC and for the Planning Commission.
Okay,
But whether or not that was an allowed feature on Fence Factory, staff will have to look into that.
sure. And of course, the practical consideration of security risks on the site to the south is affected by the site to the north being unoccupied, and that will be
Absolutely.
resolved by this project. So
Absolutely,
there-
and this.
yeah,
We've been really wanting to see an infill commercial project of this nature on this site for some years. So just as a background, the staff is really happy that, you know, this is moving forward. As much as we want to pick it apart, it's
Yeah.
it's a very positive thing. So
right. Yeah, if we know it's not adding a lot of value as packed dirt right now. Let's see. I have notes about one other thing that I was going to check on, and I've lost that comment now. So let me hand it back to you, Madam Chair. And if I think about what that last question was, I'll come back to you.
Sounds good. Thank you. Mariah, did you have a question? Or Emily, sorry.
Many have been answered already, but perhaps Mariah can tell me, or we can put it on the list for the owners and designers, as to whether that drainage basin has actually been designed / sized yet. Have you guys received any hydrology calcs or anything on that level of detail yet?
Yeah, so that's a good question for the applicant. Our first comments were encouraging them to naturalize the basin. And then I know they came back to us with a response on what that would take and the impact of that. So I believe they've looked into that. So that's a good question for Armando when he can come on.
Excellent. Yeah, my concern there is simply that if it hasn't been designed yet, it could potentially have a significant impact on the site layout and landscape plan. And I wouldn't want us to get into too much detail yet with recommendations along that highway frontage, if it's just all gonna have to get redone based on hydrology calcs for that retention basin later. That was my only concern or question at this point.
Okay. Jeff? You're muted.
Actually,
There you are.
I don't have any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you. All right, this time I'm going to hold my questions until after we hear from the applicant. Let's go ahead and hear from the applicant, and then we'll open it up to public comment.
Okay, I'm unmuting Armando, but if anyone else, I believe this is the applicant team. There's a couple other people. If you'd want to speak, please raise your hand.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
How's everybody doing? My name is Armando. I'm with GP Architecture Inc. And we were hired by the building owner to put this together for them and present it to you guys. So I'm happy to meet everybody. So
Okay.
I did write down some of your questions. You want me to go over them, or you wanna go ahead and just ask me which one you want to go over first?
I'll let you go through your list that you wrote down, and then if we've missed something, we'll go ahead and add that back in.
Okay, great. So my list, the first one was regarding screening of the fence at the freeway. So per the comments that we got from you guys was that every fence needed to be screened somehow. So we screened that in order, we put the green bats in order to screen it, per the comments, but we actually wanted that to be open. The clients wants that fence at the freeway to be open so that they can able to see not only the landscaping, but the building and the equipment. So we have no problem with getting rid of that and reviewing with the department and see what would be the best way to either keep that chain link fence or maybe replacing it with wrought iron. But definitely we do want to keep that open. Any comments you guys have on that?
There was another question when it came to regards to razor fencing on, I guess, the fence factory side. Is that-
So regarding the fence factory side, yeah, you guys are right. That's existing, and it's probably because the lot was vacant and fence factory didn't want anybody to, jump the fence from that side. But we have no problem taking that off. Yeah, we think it doesn't look nice. It's not gonna look nice with our building and landscaping. So we have no problem taking that wire off from the top of the fence.
Okay, and then can you speak to the drainage? How you guys were going to be.
Oh, okay, so the retention basin, yes, we did have a full report done on that hydrology report, and I believe we submitted it to planning. So that is designed per the preliminary grading plan that we put together as part of the submittal package. And it's only about between 1.5 feet to 1.4 feet. It's just a very small retaining wall that's gonna be along between the building and the retention basin. There's gonna be about 1.5 feet retaining wall. And it is gonna be open from that side. It's only gonna have a fence along the property line. So it'll be completely open so that they can maintenance the landscaping. That's not gonna be inside the retention basin and all around. So it won't be like he was saying, if it's gonna be all like in a corral type of a fence. No, it's gonna be completely open with a 1.5 feet retaining wall. That's gonna go from the top level down to the landscaping. I don't know if you could put that elevation back that we did on the screen, or that guy, yeah. So it's pretty much gonna be what you see there, just the fence along the freeway, and everything else would be completely open so they can maintenance it and you can see all the way through the building.
And then I know one of our other questions was the different storage yards, both at the front and the back. How do you see
Yeah,
that
so
being
that-
utilized?
As far as equipment storage, it's gonna be you're talking about what they're gonna store in the equipment parking. So that's gonna be a combination of new equipment from Bobcat, new equipment, and also of old equipment that's gonna be available for rental. So it's not gonna be like a material yard or lumber yard equipment where they're gonna have products or wood or brick or metal. It's strictly gonna be a heavy machinery. So bobcats, large scaffolding and things like that. So it's gonna be throughout the site and mainly along the freeway and in front of the street. Maybe they'll have the newer pieces of equipment for display, and then towards the middle you will get some of the older equipment that's gonna be for rent and weekly rentals, so that they can, those are gonna be the ones that are gonna be coming in and out.
Okay.
And then you had
Nice.
another question regarding the roof.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not gonna be a reflective roof at all. It's gonna be that bluish color that you see. Is gonna be flat. Usually those don't have a high reflective shine on them. So yeah, it's gonna be very, very flat as far as the shine that is gonna put out. And you can see here kind of the roof plan. We got some play of the different towers and elements that we created to give it kind of its more nicer architectural view from it. So
All right. Let me see if our committee has any more questions. Susan, go ahead.
Yes, I remembered what my other question was. So in recent sessions of the city council, we've been working on accommodating new changes in state law about allowing for commercial mixed use in a variety of zoning categories. Because of those changes, which allow that combination of upper story residential in commercial space, does that change the allowability of what they had originally proposed as a caretaker unit within the property on the upper level?
Phil, maybe you can weigh in on this, but or Kelly.
Yeah,
But
I'm happy
do you
to weigh
guys
in.
mind if I give you just a quick breakdown on what the purpose was of that upper residential unit?
I think that you had proposed that originally. So
Yeah,
the
and-
state law only applies to commercial zoning districts where mixed use is already allowed. And correct me if I'm wrong, Mariah, but it is not currently allowed in this zoning district.
Okay, so it's essentially that's a moot point in the sense the district itself doesn't allow for mixed use. The changes in state law that we're accommodating would not change the situation and what they had proposed.
Correct.
Does the design that we're allowing, is it such that if in the course of the city's update to the general plan that is in progress, we started to reconsider, that restriction on this particular zoning category or something, changed here, would they then be able to accommodate their original desire of a caretaker thing if that became allowed? It seems like it wouldn't change anything about the building envelope or anything else. It's just
Possibly, if
if
they
the rules
design
change.
the office space that could be converted later, they could do that, that's possible. Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. You don't all fit on my screen. Dennis, did you have any questions or are you good?
I was kind of interested in what Councilperson Funk was talking about, and were you addressing the latest state law that the governor has signed or going to sign?
Did sign.
So it's a couple weeks old, basically, right? In terms
Well,
of
there's several that were signed yesterday that
Yeah.
are housing supportive bills.
And
One of them speaks to mixed use in that it wants to allow mixed use by right in certain circumstances.
And that would differ from what Susan was discussing before.
Well, only in areas where the mixed use would be normally allowed. In other words, we have certain zones where, for example, like industrial, and this is a light industrial zone where we don't allow it anyway, so it wouldn't apply to that.
But the new law that was signed yesterday doesn't change that.
It doesn't really change that. What it basically says is where we conditionally allow mixed use, it might have to be allowed by right if they comply with certain conditions and build it with prevailing wage, and it's a whole list of conditions. I don't think it's really going to make any changes to mixed use. We already allow mixed use in quite a few of our commercial zoning districts, and it's allowed by right in our downtown as it is right now. So for us, I don't think any of those bills are really going to make much difference.
They all seem to be predicated on the distance from a transportation center too.
Yeah.
In terms of the property locations. Okay, thank you.
I think, does Armando still have his hand raised, or is that just left over?
I think it's just left over.
Oh, yeah, I'll take it down.
I was gonna say, I think it came up as soon as we started to talk. Alrighty, so now at this point, I'm gonna open it up to public comment. If we have anybody here that's wanting to speak or ask questions on this project, then we will go ahead. Looks like we have Laughlin Development, but you are muted. There you go. Go ahead.
Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Good afternoon. It's Peter Laughlin Company, developer of Emerald Ridge, the apartments that you're speaking about on the east side. I'm generally in support of this project. I just want to make sure, as Commissioner Funk had mentioned, our residents are set a little bit higher up. So my main concern is light and noise, and of course visual. I would recommend, I don't think it would affect the development at all, having the fence on the front part on the inside of their landscape, so that we have a nice landscape area along the sidewalk, not just a fence tucked up right to the back side of the sidewalk. On our side, we have about 40 feet of landscape. And if there could be a comment made on how the lighting is going to be, so that if it's going to be on, I'm assuming it's going to be dark sky compliant lighting, and it won't be a large bright light shining into the residents' units. And also just maybe a comment on when they're going to be open. I know there's a lot of backup noise alerts on equipment, and if it's at 7 a.m. and our residents are trying to sleep, or they're just waking up, or if that's going to be their new alarm clock. So just kind of comments on all that. And then one last thing, and this might be a planning commission thing, are they going to be required to make right turns on El Camino Real? Or are they going to be allowed to do a left turn out on El Camino Real, which then would put them right in front of our entry? And I know that street's pretty busy, but that might be a planning commission comment. And that's, and of course, the glare on the roof would be a concern. Outside of that, that's all I have, and I appreciate your time.
It does not look like. Mariah, we don't have anybody on the phone, do we?
I don't see anyone else.
I'll go ahead and close public comment, bring it back to committee discussion and questions.
Can we hear about the lighting and hours of operation per Mr. Laughlin's questions?
Sure.
Yeah, so we didn't receive a lighting plan and I'm not sure what the hours of operation are. So if it's okay, I'd like to open it back up to Armando.
Hey, guys. Regarding the parking lot lighting, we will have some, I guess, pole lighting for the parking areas. Everything else would be just lighting at the building. And it will be per the city building code standards, which are very rigorous. They take this very seriously. We have to have a zero pollution light over our property lines. So we will have some pole lighting just for the parking area, you know, your basic. But for everything else, it would just be building lighting. They don't do work at night, none of that. So for the lighting, yeah, we will have some poles, but not a tremendous amount where we're gonna light up the property line all the way around. And regarding the hours of operation, yeah, it would be, I believe, in 7 to 7 hours of operation. People pick up the equipment in the morning and drop it off at night. But a lot of these are just you know, pickup trucks with trailers. They will be large trucks coming in here, but not throughout the day, not like every hour. It's mainly people pick up and deliver, and other people that go maintenance their equipment.
All right. Did that answer your question, Susan?
Yeah, I'd follow up with it. Could we get a little bit more clarity about the traffic flow when somebody's coming in with a truck with a device suitable for transporting a bobcat, since that's the main thing here. How big a vehicle is it? How does it flow? And at what point are you getting backup alarms? And those little beep beep beeps.
Yeah, so that's exactly why you guys see that we have 2 driveways, right?
Mm-hmm.
To make it easy on them to be able to pull in, and to the right, the first driveway where the parking lot, where we have our parking. So that would be, they're gonna be pulling in from there. You can see the truck is very light, but I see the truck coming around, and then they'll pretty much park right in front of that turn, load up, and then they'll go. Wow, so this is mainly for the trailers, customers that are gonna park and walk up to the service buildings there, which is park in the parking lot and walk up. So that's the purpose of that, those driveways in and out. They're gonna come in one side, park there, load up, and then just go out, so that there will be nobody waiting on the outside. Even if they have to drive a truck into the cement base crush where we have some of the equipment training, they can park additional trucks there and load them up, and they can just drive out the secondary driveway.
So what proportion of the loading of equipment is likely to be done without having to back up the bobcat and go beep beep beep?
Yeah, there will be some of that, but mainly you can see the truck and just pretty much park straight where the equipment could just park straight into the trailer where they wouldn't have to back up. So I don't think it'll be like they have to go in reverse for a long period of time. I think it's just moving the equipment forward towards that curve in the middle, and the trailer will be there almost ready to exit out, and then load them up straight, and then boom, take them up. The only time where there would be the reverse, because the trailer would be coming in the same way, is once they reverse it down from the truck, and maybe it'll be no more than 4 or 5 minutes, reverse it, and then they'll turn it and then move forward. towards the parking designated area. But
Sure.
as far as a lot of beeping when they go into the trailer, I don't see that. I do see some beeping, maybe 4 or 5 minutes when they're coming reverse from the trailer and then going back into their equipment parking location.
Okay, so the early morning stuff that would be happening at 7 is likely to be done forward without beeps. As a
Exactly,
general rule.
In the morning, you won't get a lot of beeps because everybody's going forward. At the end of the day, around 7, you will get some beeps.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. That answers my questions on that.
Okay. Dennis.
And bobcats are bobcats are pretty small pieces of equipment. Are they going to be on the rental portions that have been talked about? Are they going to be allowed to be placed on personal trailers, or are they already, people are picking up the bobcat and the trailer and shipping off with that unit versus backing up or going on to moving it on to personal trailer?
There will be some trailers available. If the person doesn't have a trailer, there'll be some trailers available for them to rent the equipment with. But it'll be a 50-50. A lot of people will bring their trailer because it is an additional cost.
Okay, thank you.
Emily, any questions or comments?
I have one more, please.
Okay.
Do we know where the highway contours are on the property? Noise contours?
Bill?
We do have maps of that. I'll see if I can find something while we're still here. In our noise element.
I'm just, a lot of noise. I live half mile from the highway. I can hear it. It's,
yeah, it's usually
the ambient noise is loud, especially in the morning time and in the evening time.
It's 65 to 70 decibels, even 15, 20 feet in from that property line.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, I mean, right now, with respect to the apartments across the street, there is a lot of noise that comes off the freeway at peak hour times in the morning and evening now. And wondering how much more activity on this would be adding to that noise. I would say it would probably be a negligible amount.
And the building itself will act as a buffer. So the more you put landscape and building here, it's actually going to be helping that situation over that ambient noise that's pretty strong. Having this as a vacant, plain, clear site with an amphitheater effect that goes uphill straight to the residential is a more significant impact.
Okay, I moved all of you onto one screen, so now I can talk to you instead of having 5 per page and scrolling. Susan.
Yeah, can we get a confirmation from Mr. Acevedo with regard to the non-reflective nature of the roof? Since he's here and would know that. And then the other question I'll lay out there is with regard to the question from public comment, Mr. Laughlin, about would it be possible to have the landscaping outside of the fence as opposed to inside the fence on the El Camino Real side? And I would be interested in comment on the experience of that with regard to security. I know it's always a concern about where creating certain landscaped environments that are inviting to our unhoused population to hang out there in ways that might not be helpful to the safety and security of the business or the neighborhood or the safety of the people involved. And so I don't know, does it make a difference either way where that fence is relative? And is the landscaping already outside that fence?
Yes, so I can answer that part. The landscaping is proposed in front of that fence there. So the landscaping will be between the sidewalk and that new fence.
Okay.
And then maybe Armando can address your question about the roof reflectivity.
Yes.
I'm actually going through that spec right now and I don't see anything as far as a number that pops up regarding, the amount of reflection that's gonna come out of the roof. But,
Armando, can you hear me?
yeah,
While you're looking that up, can I address some of the backup alarms real quick and just introduce myself real quick?
go ahead, yeah.
I was gonna say, introduce yourself because I saw your hand up and I thought you're a member of the public, so.
No
we were
problem. So
still
my
working
name's
through it.
Travis Twining. I own Giffen Rental and I also own the property. Armando's representing us as the applicant. And just wanted to kind of reiterate what Armando was saying, which was very, very detailed, but just a little bit off on the backup alarms. We're going to probably use this location more for retail than a rental facility. This will be our 5th location for Giffen Rental. We have one in Ventura, Goleta, Santa Maria, and Salinas, and then this will be number 5. The reason we purchased this particular property was for the freeway frontage. And so that we really view this one as a much better location for retail versus rental. I would say 90% of our rental equipment that has backup alarms, which we would be obviously loading and unloading early in the morning, will be dispatched out of our Santa Maria branch. So the backup alarms will be very minimal. And usually if we do have a rental, which is very rare out of this location, it will be the small compact equipment. It won't be a lot of our big stuff. Just because the lot doesn't actually, it's not, the size of this lot is not ideal for some of our larger equipment. So it would be the smaller Bobcat products. And when we pick them up from a job site, we always back them onto the trailer. That's the safest way to go. So the beeping would be during the loading, which would be at the job site, and then they drive forward off the trailer. And usually when we back them up, it's less than 15 seconds. Most of the movement is forward, not backwards. And we would load them backwards, but you only load them backwards when you get right up to the trailer, then you spin around and you load it. It takes 15 seconds to load it. So the beeping would only last for 15 seconds rather than 3 to 4 minutes. And again, we wouldn't do that during early business hours because most of our rental side of it will be dispatched out of the Santa Maria branch or Salinas, because we're going to attack it from both sides for San Luis Obispo County. Because our drivers are going to dispatch out of Santa Maria. It won't make financial sense for us to keep semis in Atascadero. The lot's not big enough. Plus our drivers don't live there. They live in Santa Maria and then north. So just wanted to reiterate on that this will be more of a retail facility versus a rental facility. And that's why we chose this specific site on the freeway for that freeway exposure. That's all I had to say. And I'm more than happy to answer any questions if anybody had any for me.
Okay. Thank you, Travis. All right, Emily, I think I already asked you if you had any questions.
You did and no.
Okay, and then Jeff, have I addressed your questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Okay, and I addressed Susan and I addressed Dennis. Okay, so let me go back to the notes that I've been compiling. And then we'll have a discussion with staff in regards to the landscaping, the view from the highway of the equipment, how that works, and modifications that we had talked about, and the placement of equipment and parking.
So I just add one thing. So the slats around that are being added around the on the Highway 101 side and then on the sides, staff is completely fine with not requiring those or removing them. Our code actually encourages landscaping over slats. So I apologize, I didn't realize that was in response to our correction. I thought that's what the applicant wanted to do. So we're completely fine with just removing the slats altogether. So I wanted to put that out there.
Is it going to be one fence on the backside for maximum exposure for this?
Yes, just with one fence.
Okay, and then Phil, that fits in with the code?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I asked Phil if that fits in with the code of seeing the equipment from the highway.
Seeing new display equipment is okay. The idea is that we generally have landscape screening back there. we don't want to completely conceal the site because we realize that, their success does rely on some visibility there. But at the same time, our code does have this landscape requirement that we have that buffering there that is an attractive sort of feature of our community. And a lot of the properties that we have along this zone don't have that now because they were developed far before, we had these requirements put in place. So whenever we have that opportunity, we really do try and create that nice buffer with a few trees, some shrubs. But the idea isn't to completely conceal the property. The idea is to buffer that so that you can say, all right, look, there's something here. I can see some new bobcat equipment peeking out, amongst what I see as a nice transition through that zone, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and then obviously the landscaping is going to take some time to get to full maturity, and
And a logical condition here would be to reserve these areas that are immediately adjacent to the front and rear property lines for the newer equipment, and the rental equipment being in the interior of the site.
And then the other question I'd have is pushing the fencing on the front part and allowing the exposure of more landscaping at the sidewalk and not behind the fencing, like Emerald Ridge across the street. Is that feasible for the city as well as the applicant?
I think it's already done that way.
From the city's perspective, it's a good idea to do it that way.
It looks like it on the plans. I just wanted to make sure that we were all seeing that as well.
I think that's the case, and that would be the most desired scenario.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the gates do open in, so pushing the fence back further would impact the parking a little bit more as well.
It's fine, as long as we're seeing the same things on the plan. Dennis,
Oh, the gates don't slide along and roll along, they actually fold open?
Yes.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, in director's discussion about landscaping along the highway, is there a percentage coverage that we could say 50%, 35%, or something in terms of what the density would be?
You can do that, but the best way to really do it is just to make sure that we've got the right palette of plants in there, the right irrigation. And you could give us, percentages, that's totally fine. And that could also be a planning commission condition. Well, but a better way to do it is to basically have a number or distancing of trees and number or distancing of shrubs and the right varieties that will do what we're looking to have done here.
Well, it seems like the rationale for why it's there is confusing to me, in the sense that I thought Mariah talked about there being some type of screening of the industrial look from the highway and type of things. This is a beautiful building, and as you said, there's other projects along the highway that have been there a lot sooner, but I would love to look at that building. And I think, again, having the bobcats along the freeway so people could see it and have it a selling item, I mean, that's what it's for. And so I'm in support of, just in general, of removing the slats from the highway or everywhere, and then also the higher fence along the frontage.
I think we have addressed all of your questions, Mariah. Is there anything else you're looking for?
I don't think so. I have a couple notes here to get more information about the lights and maybe add some conditions about the lights and noise into the planning commission, but otherwise I think you've addressed all of the points.
Okay. And I think it's pretty standard on some of the projects that the lighting and the noise is always something we looked at. Susan, I saw your hand up. You had a question?
Yeah, I'm just going to add a comment that I'm fine with the trees on what would be the staff is asking to add on the lower right of the site. That doesn't seem to compete with the section of the property where the applicant is displaying the cool new toys. So they wouldn't interfere with their site and would allow some of the visual breakup of that industrial frontage that we're trying to achieve with the requirements. So that seems like a win-win there. And I want to make sure that the non-reflective character of the roof, stays in there because this is a roof that will be seen from above. And that would have a significant neighborhood impact. And most of the times in an industrial situation, who cares what it looks like from the top? But here, that's gonna be a consideration, and they've done a nice job with it. And so just as this rolls along to planning to include that detail so that that can be quantified and assured, and that will be raise the comfort level for the folks who will be looking at that.
Great, thank you. I just wanted to point out to the applicant, we appreciate all the hard work. This is a big improvement to what's there, and we appreciate all that you've pulled together, and we look forward to seeing it come together, and know you will work with the city staff and your neighbors to make it cohesive to all of you and a big part of our community. So thank you.
Yeah. And if possible, get rid of the razor wire.
Yeah, I think he said that's one of the first things that's going. So
okay, great.
I think everybody's pretty clear how we are on fencing.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll move on to the next. Any committee member comments and reports? Dennis.
Yeah, it has to do with landscaping and with the whole water situation that we're having in our state and everywhere. Does our do we know of any ordinances, if not ours, that allow for substitutes, synthetic fall plants, something? I know we could have fake grass, if we had decorative rocks or something to try to limit the amount of irrigation that we have, but yet still kind of keep something that tries to enhance the site.
Interesting. We don't have anything that goes that direction. And those become built aesthetic features, and the DRC can always provide comments like that on projects, but we don't currently have any landscape standards that go to that extent. We do have definitely included in our standards are water preservation in all of our landscape, and we always work towards native landscape palettes and drought tolerant landscape palettes that are deer proof as well, because those are the things that survive in our climate and they're less maintenance. But in terms of using artificial things, we don't really have any standards that address that.
We don't get any bonus points if we've got artificial turf instead of grass.
You might actually lose points in some sense, because then regional water is going to say, where's your area to soak up water, and now you've put this artificial steel on the property that is a barrier to getting water back into the ground. I'm just assuming. I don't know.
I have artificial grass in portions of our yard, and it's porous.
It can be, yeah. If you do it on sand, it's done the right way. Some people I've seen done it over the top of asphalt or concrete. That's what I'm talking about. But if you do it over the sand the way it's supposed to be done, and it's compacted in, and it's actually a really good substrate. It's great, and it looks attractive for a very long time. The latest turf that we've seen over the last 20 years, much different than what we saw 30, 40 years ago with AstroTurf. It's pretty cool, and it's got some great color blends to it, and I think it's a great option.
Mine has a mini soccer field painted on it, so the grandkids can play.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Come into your house. Any more committee reports? Looks like none. We'll go on to director's report. What's going on in your world, Phil?
Well, we're going to see you again at this committee on October the 13th, and we're going to be asking you a question about how fast you like your food. So we're going to be seeing 2 fast food restaurants that are coming to Atascadero to replace existing fast food restaurants. So nothing building brand new stuff, but the KFC that was formerly over there, the San Anselmo and San Paulo, is going to get replaced with a Sonic Burger, and that's going to have some aesthetic changes that we'll take a look at. And the A&W over there on Morrow Road is getting replaced with a Chipotle, and so we'll get some aesthetic changes there as well to look at the DRC. So that's next up, October 13th. Let's see, what else can I let you know that's in that world. those of you that are on the council know that we just this week went over some general concepts for upcoming objective design standards. So just for the rest of you on the DRC that weren't at the council this Tuesday, we had a very healthy discussion about those design standards that are going to be applied to multifamily residential projects, and whether that's a residential project in a commercial zone or an industrial zone. Staff is now going to go to work on developing those objective standards, and we'll run drafts. I think we'll come to this DRC at some point, and to the Planning Commission and to the City Council again with those. But our discussion at the council this Tuesday was generalized themes so that we can go to work on those objective design standards that'll apply to these residential projects. And the reason we're doing that, we've been talking about this for years, is so that we have this set of standards, hopefully in a menu list, that developers can choose from to guide their projects. And so that when we get these by right projects that the state is really desiring for residential, that they have a guide to go to, and we're not subjectively judging their projects and adding costs and adding features, but instead they're already built into our standards. And that's what the state wants. That's what our housing element policies recommended when we adopted our housing element a couple of years ago. So we're working on that. And
and that was a 4-hour council meeting devoted almost entirely to that.
Yes.
Yes, and
That's
Phil
why I
is
said-
easy to work for or work with, right?
Yeah.
Phil is easy to work with.
Healthy
Still-
discussion is why I said that. Yeah. So,
He's still talking to us. This guy.
yes.
It
I know.
continues.
It's a hard task. It's challenging in itself. We're doing general plans coming up and trying to get it right, or trying to fix things that seem out of place. And when you get state mandates, they complicate the situation, and we're forced to. DRC has seen quite a few projects that have come through that are outside of not the ordinary, but don't always fit in with the neighborhood. And so by right, they have that option. And so as we sit here and look how we build out, I think the state thinks everything should be as large as possible and as high as possible. That doesn't fit every community, and our community is unique, and we want to kind of keep it that way. So Phil is always trying to help us decipher and understand what's coming down, and DRC is always a glimpse into by right. And people do have the right to do what they want with their properties. It's just trying to make sure that we're able to provide them guidance that fits in, and the neighbors, how do we interact with one another is key, especially in the world we've come out of, being kind and communicating. So thank you. Let's see. I think the next point is adjournment. What do you think?
Director's smiling.
I know. I still got 2 more days of city functions, so. And then I'm
See
gonna
you
go
all
off.
at the culinary days this
Yes, make sure everybody comes out.
weekend. We'll be there.
Phil's giving out candy.
Hey, stop by my cotton candy booth.
I'm coming there first. I'm gonna drop my daughter off there. When we're done with the parade, I'll come back and pick her up.
Oh, boy.
And once you have your cotton candy, then you can come by and do a little dance with the funky chicken at my booth.
I'll bring my daughter to both.
Yeah,
Yes.
I'm gonna need a nap. Has anybody got a booth with a nap? Some cots.
There are some cots usually in culinary days.
Yeah. All right. Well, you guys, the meeting's adjourned. You guys have a good day, and see you this weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.